everybody. First thing on the agenda, we have public comment, but instead of doing public comment now, I think we'll do our findings of fact, and then there's going to be public comment anyway. So we'll go to Bridgton Indoor Storage on Portland Road, map 9, lot 60A. Findings of fact and conclusions of law. I do have one change on this, and it's basically, says here on item number 3 on the first page, says the 10.58 acre parcel has a 131,000 square foot building. It's actually 116,000 plus.
Okay.
So I'm just going to write 116,000 plus square foot building and initial that. Are there any other comments or corrections?
There was a small typo.
Oh, you always find them. I'm so happy about that. And where was that?
Section 3B,
Section.
preserve and enhance the landscape.
Yes.
No, external, the version I have, it says NP, external structures will be erected.
Oh, yeah. So that's no external structures. Okay. Anything else? I am glad somebody reads these really closely. Anybody else have anything?
What did you edit the square footage of the building to?
Say again, Maggie?
What did you edit the square footage of the building to?
116,000 plus.
Okay.
I had written down what it was, but I think I left that somewhere.
The other numbers don't add up to that, but I don't know how much it matters.
No, that's just, those are the additional things
Okay.
that are being added, and the rest is all the cultivation facility.
Okay.
Empty. Yeah, it was a little odd the way it was done.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other changes, I'd accept a motion to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Cook. Is there a second? Second by Erica. By the way, I appoint Jessica as a voting member tonight. All in favor, please raise your hand. Actually, you shouldn't, Angie. 'Cause
That's
I
right.
forgot you
That's
recused
right.
yourself.
That's right.
So I need somebody else to make the first motion. Moved by Ms. Lynn, seconded by Ms. Rowland. You recused yourself, so don't get the vote, unfortunately. All in favor, please raise your hand. 4-0. Okay. If you wouldn't mind making sure that Laura Lee gets this, that would be great. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is just preliminary prioritization of future ordinance work. As I mentioned earlier, nothing binding. This is more of we've got some public here, I'm sure, that are going to give us some ideas. And of course, Ashley Millett is here, our new Community Development Director, who may also have ideas. So this is, maybe you wouldn't be brainstorming, but just kind of to take the temperature of what people think's important. We don't even, you can look at the list and pick it from the list, or if you're curious whether something's on the list, some of us know it pretty good, or it doesn't matter if it's on the list or not. We can just be general about it. Let me just explain the evergreen list, because the public has it too, and Ashley. So this is a spreadsheet. The first few pages are actually proposed ideas. Okay. The third page is something the board's already worked through the process and gotten written up, but hasn't had a public hearing. And we decided to sort of table that for a while. The fourth sheet, which is on the back of the third sheet, actually, where it says when and what, those are changes that have been done in the last few years.
And what page is that?
That is this one that says when and what.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, if you were in the spreadsheet, it would be easier, because then you'd see how it's titled. The last sheet is a list of pretty obvious. Do we drop it off the list or just practice benign neglect? And if it comes up and those things become important, fine. Many of these things were, they're almost all shoreland zoning, or most of them are shoreland zoning ordinance, and most of these would have to go to the state for approval. And some of these would probably have some pretty heavy pushback from the public, so, and there was no real move to do this other than to just match what the exact state guidelines are. And at the time these came up, the board did not want to make substantive changes to the ordinance. They just wanted to consolidate the ordinance. And then you see some of these others. Okay? So, I thought maybe a good place to start, since some folks have taken the time to come here, is just to let the public speak, if that works for the board. Makes sense? And then I think we'll just go from there. So whoever would like to come up first, I know that at least, well, I think all of you have actually made suggestions to the board in the past. And just name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Paul Skinner. I'm landowner in West Bridgton, several parcels, but the one I want to talk about tonight is one I talked to you folks about last summer. It's tax map 7, lot 4A, about 110 acres. It spans from Little Mountain down into the valley between Little Mountain and Pleasant Mountain and up Pleasant Mountain. So I'm here today to talk about the same subject as last summer, which was the 25% restriction within the land not suitable for development clause that was added. I don't know if that was 2024, if that was added.
The inclusion of slopes of 25% or more as land not suitable for development.
That's right, yeah. Before I get started into that, I do want to make mention, when we discussed it last summer, there was some discussion amongst board members after I left that I happened to watch later on the video. Some really good questions. One of them was, okay, well, how big was the lot, and what was the assessment on it? And unfortunately, parcel data from an unrelated lot that I own, that also happens to be lot 4A, was quoted. Honest mistake any of us could make, and you know, it was quoted as 25 acres, which is not what we were talking about. And then the value, once someone asked what was the assessed value of the lot, it was $9,500. And someone said, well, that's not very much, is it? No, it's not. But we were talking about the wrong lot, unfortunately. Or the parcel data was quoted was the wrong lot, and it was in tree growth. That wasn't mentioned. So I don't know if the board is aware of how tree growth values are set, but they're set by the state. For the obvious reason for landowners to not have to do something with their land, keep it in tree growth, and the taxes are less, and they mandate the amounts per acre, whether it's hardwood, softwood, or mixed wood. And so 25 acres times what they dictate in 2025 for hardwood is $381 an acre, comes out to $9,500. So that, I know that's kind of not really related to 25% thing, but I did want to set the record straight, because some of the board members left the meeting like, what is he talking about, losing
Right.
value on a $9,500 lot? And
Right.
I didn't want to send an email and turn it into a whole bunch of hoopla. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that that was that. And the 110 acres that I do want to talk about is in tree growth also. Again, those assessed values are mandated by the state. The town has no say in it. And further, they don't actually represent fair market value. That's not the intent of it. By no way, shape, or form is tree growth tax rate, assessment rate supposed to represent fair market value. So part of my argument of my position on the 25% thing is it's taken away value from landowners that have held on to land that may have some land in and out of the 25% grade thing, which I do. I have some that's in, some that's out. And the way that I read the code is even if I have some that's out and I need to cross through some land that is over 25%, I can't, because it says undisturbed, left in its natural state. So it's very, in my opinion, it's very onerous and frankly it's punitive, that ordinance to landowners that have land at above 25% grade. And I don't know what the intent was when it was put in. It seemed like it was coordinated with the other three towns. One of the questions came up at the board meeting, well, what is Denmark and Freiburg doing? They have implemented similar restrictions, and it sure seems to me from the outside, I don't know if that was the intent, but it appears as sort of a ridgeline ordinance for Pleasant Mountain and other higher hills along Route
Yeah.
302. I don't think that was the intent, but
No, it
that's how it
wasn't.
appears to me. And it's unfortunate because, I've seen some of the videos on the economic development and an interview with you, Madam Chair, and, obviously there's been some discussion about if and when the ski area ever expands, it'd be nice for it to expand. It's a huge economic engine for the whole area. Well, Denmark and Freiburg don't have that privilege. The town of Bridgton does, and I'm willing to bet if Denmark or Freiburg had a ski area such as this, and that, the future looks bright and they may be expanding, they wouldn't be too quick to be putting in a 25% restriction. Because 25% is not much. I'd like to do a little demo of how little that is at the appropriate time, but as far, if the town's lucky enough and the business is successful, I'd love it the ski area to have the ability to expand. We all benefit from it. And what if they want to put condos on Slopeside? Or what if a landowner such as me wants to put some residential dwellings on Little Mountain? If it's 25% and over, restrictive, it makes it very difficult to do so. So in some ways, it's putting up a barrier to growth. And I don't think that was the intended consequence of it.
No, I'm trying, I can probably go back and look some of this up, but I'll give my recollection. Go ahead.
I think I said this last time, and I'm not sure if it's been followed up on, but I think understanding what percentage of the town is even affected by this, I'm not sure that it's that much area that's affected.
Well, the
and
way
it would be
the-
a really simple GIS mapping exercise, like it would,
It's
the
not
town
that
should.
simple, though. The free apps that do this are usually
It's-
23% or 27%.
It's not free, it's a simple GIS program. I mean,
What's
the
JF?
GIS.
Oh, GIS.
Geographic information.
Sorry,
System.
I apparently
The
need-
town,
I apparently
if the
need
town
hearing
doesn't
aids.
have the capacity to do that, we should talk about investing in that, whether it's a position or the software itself, because it's a really simple thing, and that for me is the starting point of how many lots is this affecting?
Can
and
you
where
say a little
they
bit
are.
more about that, Maggie? Because I wasn't here for that earlier conversation. I'd love to hear the context.
Well, the context in which we did it, and I'm kind of going to the Freiburg ordinance right now. So, so first of all, it only, if I remember correctly, this only applies to subdivisions, okay? Because, so the reason it was modified is we had a couple of situations in which, so if you have, there's certain lot requirements depending on whether, you have septic and well individually or centrally. And this was centrally, I believe, which then it's 5,000 square feet per dwelling unit. Well, on some land that was I can't remember exactly, but let's say it had a significant amount of wetland. People were making the calculation based upon that. So just as an example, let's say it was 50 acres and 25 acres was wetland. But the calculation for how many dwelling units could be placed on that 50 acres was based on the 50 acres, of which half of it you couldn't build on anyway. So in fact, you're putting those, let's say, 50 acres, that'd be 50 or 500. Can't do my math. So in fact, you're putting double the number of dwelling units on a smaller postage stamp because you're including, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but you're including all of that land. And so what we saw is people just doing that calculation and crowding in, significantly more units into a smaller space, next to wetlands and whatnot. That was really the driver for that. And then we used, I think we used the Freiburg ordinance, which I'm looking up right now, to model that standard after. And I want to say when we did that, and this is why I'm looking it up, I think additional items were added I think we added more items, including that 25% slopes. And I forget, I want to say that might have been, well, it's always good to blame things on legal. But that's why we did that. We weren't saying you can't, so that land is basically, if 50%, and I see what you're saying, if 50% of the land is on a slope and you can't build on, and you only get to count the other 50% for density, then yeah, you're not gonna be able to build as much or have as many options.
It's worse than that, I might not be able to get to it. If you can't,
Because you're saying
it says
you can't get
cannot
it.
disturb. It says no disturbance. There's no provision in there for a road or a planning board's discretion. It says it cannot be disturbed, it's not suitable for development.
So that would be something we should, well, this is just my opinion, that's something we should look at. Certainly, you would want people to be able to access property.
Right.
But I truly feel it just should be removed or increased. And I don't know what that number is, but you can build a house. I've seen houses built on 1-to-1 slope. I mean, I don't recommend that. It can be dangerous, but they can build on anything.
In this climate?
25% slope is very light. And you already have the ordinance in for your road to make sure the road's built to your specifications and that it's safe. And that's 8%, I believe, but 25% slope is only a 14% grade. Your roads are 8. I mean, 25%, if I may.
No, go ahead.
25% slope. So I'll come up a foot and I'm going to go over an additional 4 to 60 inches. That's a 25% slope.
Looks like my driveway.
Oh, most driveways are 25. Yeah. I mean, that's
Mine's
not-
probably more like 45%.
That's nothing. It really isn't. And now to say that it's not buildable, I just think it's completely unfair and unreasonable.
So just so I make sure I understand, so the rationale behind this was about unit density,
Correct.
not about the challenges or potential environmental issues of building on a 25% slope.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my recollection,
Okay.
is it was more about unit density and having, you can't build in the wetland anyway.
Right.
So you're squishing double the amount or whatever
Yeah,
the ratio is into the
I certainly get it
other.
in the wetland context, for
Yeah.
sure. And maybe on super steep.
But I
slopes.
can't say that we had experience on the board with that happening. But I don't think that was the case with the slopes, so I do think it's me personally, I think it's worth looking at. I do think people should be able to access their land. There was never an intent not to be able to access.
Would a right-of-way override that, though? Like a legal right-of-way over,
Well, I
or
think he
no?
Well, they
owns the
might not
land,
have a
right?
right of way, they
Oh,
own all the
yeah.
land,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't,
It's two separate
unless
lots.
somebody's
Yeah.
traveling to a piece through their land.
It's two lot, yeah, that's what I.
Yeah.
And I'm
So
not-
your land is not landlocked, correct?
It is not, no.
Okay.
And I'm not even saying I have that issue where I have 26% land that, that's blocking 25%. I don't think I do, but I do have, I haven't mapped it out, I haven't spent the money and laid it all out, but I know I have some that are above 25.
Right,
Not a
and-
lot, I don't have any that are 30, I don't think.
Right.
But I don't know where the line is, I don't know what's considered safe construction and
Right.
not safe construction, and I'm not sure.
And you're on Little Mountain, so do you own behind the Little Mountain store, or are you over to
I
the?
own the very top,
Okay.
easterly down, and then into the valley, and then up Pleasant Mountain. And I actually own the three-town corner of Denmark, Bridgton, and Freiburg. I have,
Okay.
so I own 110 in Bridgton on Little Mountain, and then I own another 200 plus in Denmark and in Freiburg. So I own all three sides there.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about that mountain before the Little Mountain store. I mean, that's more than a 20, I mean, and they're building houses up there on that mountain behind Pleasant Mountain, across from Ross Quarry.
Well, I will say that we've had some applications come before us. The one I can think of, well, it wasn't an it was a pre-application. The one off of, close to Waterford, and I don't know how steep that slope was. It probably wasn't 25%, but it was pretty close, and there was quite a bit of engineering magic, as the engineer put it, to be able to get like 88 units on was it 88 units, something like that, on, between wetlands and everything else. And the board did think it was too dense for that area, that, if you needed that much magic, maybe you shouldn't be maybe you should eliminate some houses, but I think to Mr. Skinner's point, there's, here's a situation where it could be 24% and they're gonna put 50, 60 homes on it. So, so we should probably look at that. The way it's described in I have to go back to our ordinance, but maybe we just put this on the docket to actually spend time on
Yeah.
sooner rather than later. The subdivision ordinance part of the code, the board, as long as we're following state law, the board can make amendments can be made to it without a town vote. A public hearing is required. Make the changes, public hearing's required, and then the board takes a vote whether to incorporate those changes. And so, so obviously, if a ton of people come and they all
Right.
object and they have good rationale for it, maybe the board doesn't want to do it, but
And you don't
if
plan
there's
on,
good rationale to do it, then we do it.
and you don't plan on putting a subdivision in or
I
anything?
have no plans to
Okay.
put a subdivision.
I think the other thing is if this were a commercial project, that spec isn't there for a commercial project. So I think the thing about access is a good point. And I think Maggie has a good point too.
I just think that's the place to start, and we should it's a really simple, this just, for me, brings up, the town of Bridgton needs a planner. We're big enough to warrant that. Other towns have that contracted planning or in-house planning, and this feels like one of those things that would be really simple for a professional to be able to look up, get input on, do the GIS mapping, see where this affects, and go from there instead of
Yeah, no, I
spending
Can
a
you
lot of
say a
time.
little bit about how that would play out in the process, though? If there's, are you thinking about how much land a change would impact is what you're
Just
questioning?
how many lots in Bridgton are affected by this, and where,
And
just
would
to
it make a
have that.
difference in our decision-making if there was 100 lots versus 10 lots?
Absolutely.
I think so.
Well, I'm just wondering, like,
Yeah.
having not
Yeah,
been on
yeah.
the
Yeah.
planning board, just wondering, like, if there's only 10 that get affected, we wouldn't make the change, or
I'm not sure if we wouldn't.
like how the.
I think it would
how the
guide.
quantification would play into the decision-making process.
For me, it would help guide the purpose of like, what are we protecting?
Right.
By, where are these places?
So you're thinking more
that-
about spatially understanding where these places are and the
Yeah.
resources that are adjacent
Yeah.
and the potential impacts, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I wasn't here when this
So the
was
way,
put it, so I
yeah,
shared
I mean,
that.
I don't have an issue with that, I think just understanding it's useful. But there's also an inconsistency with commercial development. So with commercial development, none of that applies.
There's no limit, so it's already, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I wanted to look at is the way we express it in here, and
Can you?
minimum lot size. Lot size shall be calculated to include only net buildable land. Minimum lot size for any residential or commercial subdivision is 40,000 square feet. So it's expressed a little bit different in the Freiburg one. Freiburg one did include the steep slopes, but I think we actually included a little bit more than that. In the Freiburg one, it just basically says you calculate the allowable number of lots by dividing the net residential acreage, which subtracts out that land not suitable for development. And then that's how you figure out how many lots you can have. And this is sort of similar. It says lot size shall be calculated to include only net buildable land. Minimum lot size for any residential or commercial subdivision is 40,000 square feet per dwelling unit, with the following exceptions. And then, so it's a little bit different slant on it.
Yeah, so what is Mr. Skinner referencing when he's talking about that? Is there some other regulation or ordinance that prohibits him from disturbing? Even disturbing, is that separate from the dwelling unit calculation?
Well, let's look at the definition. So what it says in the standard is you can't use that land to calculate density. Yeah.
Right.
I think it says more than that, because it's not suitable for development, so then you have to go look up the definition of
Not
development.
Right,
And when you
right.
do, it says not
Land not
disturbed.
suitable for development,
Yeah.
wetlands, streams, brooks, ponds, vernal pools, stormwater drainage, public and private rights of ways, land zone or dead level, slopes in excess of 25%, significant wildlife habitat. Land subject to flooding and land deemed by the planning board to be uninhabitable shall not be plotted for residential occupancy or other uses as may increase danger to health, life, or property. So that doesn't say you can't, just says they're not suitable for, well, it says not suitable for development, so, yeah.
So he couldn't build on anything on it if he wanted to, for personal use?
But then you
according-
go look at development, the definition of development, and development says a change in land use involving alteration of the land, water, or vegetation, or the addition or alteration of a structure or other construction not
Right, so
naturally
he can't-
occurring. So
right.
that's where that comes in.
That not naturally occurring is the one, the catch-all
Yeah,
that says you
yeah.
can't touch it.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
the one I
not-
think that's
yeah.
problematic.
So I think, we weren't gonna get into a ton of detail, but I think, I think this is something we should investigate. It's my recommendation to the board. I will say that when we determine this, and I understand your request, Maggie, and I
I
respect it.
just think that's a
And
place to
I'm
start.
not saying we should, two wrongs make a right, but when we determined this, we really were thinking just of the wetlands, and then, of course, it makes sense for streams, and it makes sense for other things. But we didn't go through the exercise of saying, we know there's a lot of wetlands around
Yeah.
here. We didn't go through the exercise of saying, how many lots are going to be impacted and what's the impact.
Yeah, no, I love
yeah.
your point about the implications of decision-making, and having to.
And so that was an implication that apparently, was certainly an issue for this fellow here. So, do we have some agreement about, I think there's a number of subdivision changes we're gonna hear about tonight, so, and that's the most, there's other things we need to worry about, like the housing changes, but those aren't due for a while.
And if I could, Madam Chair, there's probably 8 other landowners, in addition to my property, the ski area's property, there's other properties that wrap around just the mountain and Little Mountain that are affected by this. And that's without looking across town, I'm just keeping the lens close there.
So you don't necessarily have immediate plans to do something, but it's the fact that you're restricted from,
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I started the discussion last summer about value. And I think it diminishes the value, whether I want to do anything with the future, or my heirs want to do anything with it, or if I want to do a conservation easement, well, if it's not suitable for development, it's worthless. So, I have invested a lot of money in that land and other land across town. I believe in Bridgton, I've been investing heavily in it, and I don't want to see that taken away. And furthermore, I'd like the mountain to be able to expand. I'm a huge fan, I've been skiing there since I was 7. I'd hate to see anything in its way that doesn't help it or enable it to expand if and when that time comes for all of us.
And I think our last ordinance talk, we discussed that. We wanted to hear from the mountain on what their plans for expansion were for the
Yeah.
future, so that we could properly tailor these ordinance, or whatever we need to do.
yeah, well, we did create, the comprehensive plan actually did create a recreational overlay, which will designate some changes to the code if we follow through. So let's just put, subdivision up there to review.
Okay.
This, in addition to, there's some other suggestions that Mr. Lopez has made. And I will point out once more time the inequity between the commercial developments and the subdivision. And the reason for that was density more than anything else. It wasn't, that was the main reason.
Right.
So,
And if I could-
sorry.
Go ahead.
Just more context, when was that change made? The ordinance?
I think,
Like when?
maybe 3 years ago,
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. It was sort of, the driving force was, a large subdivision off of Route 302. That was the driving force. And we basically more or less adopted the language of Freiburg. We actually did have this discussion several years ago when Steve Collins was chair of the board, and we're looking at utilizing, I think it's the Cumberland County Commission on, not GPCOG, it's the one that's the environmental one, I can't remember. So, but I think we need to look at it.
Last thing I was going to say, a good example to look at this also that's not related to elevation is what if you have just land along a road, and to the back of the land, it starts to go up at 26%. If you can't make your 40,000 feet, say you're 35,000 feet to get your lots, but it's nice, clean, dry, there's no wetlands, there's no anything, you're not at elevation, you're not at a ridgeline problem, if that's somebody's concern, and here you are, you don't have a buildable lot because you go up at 26%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that on Monk Road.
Yeah.
A lot of it,
If you
yeah.
look at it through that lens, it doesn't make a lot of sense. What are you protecting at that point, you know what I mean? It's good ground, why wouldn't that be included?
It might be more useful, well, we should really dive into this and brainstorm it and get some data, but it might be more useful to have certain types of restrictions if you do build on a steep slope. As we have with a lot of commercial developments, you have stormwater buffers and all of that because of, to a large extent, what the shape of the land, and how steep it is, and how many trees or grasses there are, and, that all gets funneled into stormwater calculations, and certainly engineers and builders have to take that into account, and in order not to have an unsafe situation or have a situation where stormwater just runs everywhere, they have to find a way to accommodate that somehow within the topography of the land.
Is
So
that all mandated by DEP for the most
What's
part?
that?
Isn't that already mandated by the DEP for the most part?
Well, it depends on the size of the development, but we still ask for stormwater. The board's requirements in terms of standards still has a stormwater requirement that doesn't necessarily rely only on the DEP standard. But my point is just, maybe it's more useful to approach it, when we get into it, to think of ways you protect that area so you don't have destruction of the land, unintended, destruction of the land or unintended consequences of that land, because there's ways to do that.
And I think, I'll just say again, that's where a planner would be really helpful, because they're professionals and they know how to take, they don't, minimize unintended impact to individual landowners while getting the outcomes that the community wants and
Okay.
needs. So that's where,
So why don't we move on to the next one?
I want to stay on this one for a second, just to see if I understand Paul correctly. So what I just understood is that if the mountain wants to add additional slopes, they can't do it right now.
Oh, we're not talking about slope, this is just
Well,
for
you-
subdivision.
But it also says disturbance. so
No,
that-
if they
has
want
nothing to do
to,
with
so
that.
this is sort of my point, one of my
Okay.
points. If they want to build additional ski slopes,
Yeah.
that's a commercial operation, they can do it.
Okay,
They'll have to meet stormwater and all the other requirements and make sure it's built properly so there's not runoff everywhere, but they can do it. It's only in the subdivision regs that
Right.
this is applied.
so if they want to build slopes, they can do it, but if they want to put a three-family dwelling, they have to come to subdivision, and that, it would trigger.
If they want to put a
Yeah.
whole line of condos, yeah,
If they want to put three, that's a subdivision, right?
right,
Yep.
Okay.
yes.
Wouldn't have to be a whole line.
It's still a subdivision, yeah.
26% or
State
above-
might change
above
that.
Right, and I want to thank Paul for that demonstration with the tape measure. I think that was very powerful. There's a lot of houses in our neighborhood that wouldn't meet that requirement.
Yeah, I don't think mine would even meet that requirement.
No, if you have a walkout basement, you're gonna be worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, my yard goes almost
So-
like this.
which I think the map would be really helpful, because we're speculating on what
Yeah.
places are actually
Yeah,
25%.
That's not speculation, though. He gave you a good indication of what a 25% grade is.
Yeah, I
Yeah, but
appreciated the demo.
I think all
the map
Maggie's saying is,
would be
let's do this in an informed way, that's all.
Yeah,
And
Right.
find a way
I'd
to
like
make it.
information in front of me to make a better
Yeah,
decision is
When
all.
we were here in July, I believe when this topic came up, I believe there was a comment made, yeah, I'm not sure why we included the slope. So I can tell you, as a lifelong developer, I've been in many towns in many states, it is not atypical to have in your subdivision ordinance a requirement for net buildable land, where you do take out slopes over a certain amount, where you do take out wetlands, and land that's otherwise not suitable for development. So I don't think that the basis of that ordinance is bad, it's just what the unintended consequence is. I think you have to tidy up that language to get rid of to allow a disturbance in there for access to the land.
And to be able to build on it, you should be able to
Yeah,
put a house.
yeah.
Whatever can safely be built,
Well,
and you should be
Yeah,
able to
and
put a
maybe
house
that's
on it.
something that we need to look at when we research this, should the number be 40% or 50%?
I don't know
And
what
then
that
can we
number is.
change
Yeah.
the wording under the term development?
Yeah, so I
Because
think, I
that
think
wording
that's-
is really
There's
restrictive.
enough.
But also what other
We're only
implications
gonna meet
come
till
from that?
6, so there's enough
So we need a
discussion on
professional.
this that I'm gonna kind of stop it now. I think
Thank
we
you
need
for
to-
that.
I think we need
Thank
to
you.
look at it.
Thank you very much.
And I think we need to,
Maybe,
probably we want to attack the whole subdivision ordinance at once, because it is more straightforward to change. Okay,
All right, while I'm walking away, if someone else has questions.
Thanks for the.
thank you for bringing that to our attention.
yes, thank
Comp
you.
plan get approved, but
It's going to vote in June,
town,
town.
or were there changes?
Well, we have to update it, the state approved it, the select boards approved it, so it needs to be voted on. And it does include a recreational overlay in that area.
A recommendation for it, because the comp
Yeah.
plan doesn't
Yeah,
actually
Yeah.
put any code changes into
I
place.
do
It
I
offers a
agree.
vision that the community wants for the future.
Right. Okay,
And I
Mr.
do agree about
Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see some new faces. For those of you that don't know me yet, you will. My name is Mark Lopez. I've been working in town here for almost 20 years. I've got a lot of experience in development, and I've been before this board a lot of times. And everything's gone relatively well, I will say. I've submitted different suggestions to the board over the years. I think Deb has marked some of them on there, and I'll start in order of preference, or order of importance as far as I'm concerned. And the number one is the length of a cul-de-sac in a commercial subdivision. Bridgton is at the point now where they really could use a business park, industrial park, something along those lines, instead of developing all the frontage on 302 and any existing lots that are there. Right now, it's 1,000 feet. It's not very practical. By the time you get, 4 or 5 acre lots, you might have half a dozen lots there. I've run this by Chief Gowan. He has no problem with extending it. I think that's one thing that, it's a pretty simple fix. I think that's one thing the board should really take a look at. The other one is, and this came about, I don't know what I was doing. I ended up looking through the ordinances, and I see that in order to have a cell tower in Bridgton, you need a 750-foot radius to another building. And this was reignited in me yesterday as I was switching my cell phone, because I can't carry a call from Conway to Norway without dropping it
Oh, you must have
several
Verizon.
times. Huh?
You have Verizon?
I had US Cellular, now I have Spectrum again.
Okay.
So, Bridgton has probably the most restrictive cell tower ordinance in the state, and maybe beyond. I didn't check anywhere else, but when you look at a 750-foot radius for a cell tower, you're taking up 40 acres of land, okay? So what that really is gonna mandate is that the cell tower is gonna go in a rural area where there's a lot of woods, probably the area where you want it the least,
Right.
okay? Most communities are the height of the tower, maybe some multiple, the height of the tower plus 25%. The reality with cell phone towers is that they are designed to fail at the halfway point. So if you have a 200-foot tower, it's not gonna fall more than 100 feet, okay? Now, if you go to a 200-foot radius instead of a 750-foot radius, you drop the required land from 40 acres to under 3 acres. I know it's hard to believe, but if you do the math, that's what it is. So I think that's another one that should be looked at. More and more people now are starting to get their internet from their cell phone provider, from T-Mobile, things like that. That may all go away with Starlink, I don't know, but right now, I think that's something that should be looked at.
Okay.
Because the cell service is terrible here.
It used to be
is.
better, somehow it
I
got
agree
worse.
with you.
I have
It's
no
better.
service from Knights Hill until I get to Stella's, and then I have service.
I mean,
Yeah.
some of it is that more people are using it, and the cell companies are not investing in their infrastructure, and that, I think we should make them do that, but,
They need more towers.
Yeah, in Bridgton.
well,
Yeah.
but
And a lot of the towers-
their actual, like, infrastructure that relays the signal on the tower is what I'm saying they should invest in and update.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but I just did the math on what's required. It is the most restrictive in the state by a long shot. What was my other thing that I had on there?
What is that? What is that protecting, that 750 foot? What, I mean, what?
Okay, so
Well,
here's my take on that.
Yeah,
And I don't
you
know
go
if-
ahead. You
if we
might know the
discussed it.
history
The
better
cell
than me.
phone, that cell phone ordinance was the result of a citizen's petition when there was a cell tower that was proposed and approved on Ohio Ridge. That never
Okay.
got built. So
Okay.
I think, honestly, it was probably meant to make sure there was not many more cell towers in Bridgton, in my opinion.
It was off Ohio Ridge Road, right?
Correct,
I think I remember that.
yeah. And that tower never ended up getting built,
Okay.
which is why you don't have any reception to Stella's.
I have none. As soon as I
Yeah.
pull out of my
Well,
driveway off
I don't
Knights
know
Hill,
I
I'm
don't know
none.
exactly. First of all, you have a good point. It sounds like this was a rather, I think, from the little bit I went back and looked at, is it was developed based upon a butter's concerns, okay?
So, does the tower let off some kind of noise or vibration or something
Well,
that would
that's something we would look
disturb?
at. I mean, there's a,
I mean, it's a tower for
there's,
Christ's sakes.
this was, not to drag us down this too much, but there's pretty solid scientific evidence about how far away you need to be to have any health impacts, very solid evidence, okay? We well exceed that. So then it just gets into other concerns, aesthetic concerns, abutter concerns, the value of their land, so forth and so on. I think Mark makes a good point, though. If it's a 200-foot tower,
Yep.
it's not going to fall in anybody's yard. So, on the other hand, most people probably don't, if they live in a rural area, probably don't want a cell phone tower.
But I mean,
on the next
Bridgeton's
lot
rural
over.
enough, you could put a tower somewhere that it's not around anybody. I mean, you got West Bridgeton, North Bridge, I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty of,
Now, I don't know the reason for signal, and I won't get into that, because I used to have great signal, now I don't. And there's no extra towers, and there's no
Nope.
less towers, so.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll, that one may not be as high a priority, but we'll put it on there.
Yeah, I was just going through what I thought would be the priorities in terms of what I've suggested. The third thing is the way that in the subdivision, fire protection is handled. Right now, if you do a subdivision, you need to be within so many feet of a water source, you need to have a fire pond, or you need to have a cistern. So I've given this a lot of thought, and I bounced ideas back and forth, and I've had a lot of discussions with Chief Gowan about this. And I'll use Isaac Stevens as an example. I did a subdivision there, and fortunately there was a water source close by. We didn't originally know that, but so the alternative was going to be to either put sprinkler systems in the houses, residential sprinkler systems, which are a nightmare. We have a
Right.
neighbor now that had a problem with one of his let go, and he's still rebuilding his house from last summer. Or you'd have to put in a fire pond or a cistern. So a 30,000-gallon cistern or a fire pond, you're talking about $150,000. Now, the problem is, I do it on one side of the street. Now, Paul comes in after I'm done, and he does a subdivision on the other side. He gets a free ride, because I
already done all the
I already
work.
have the water source on my side. And the context of my conversation with the chief was, Chief, does it really make any sense to put a fire pond at the end of, or a water source at the end of Isaac Stevens? Wouldn't it be better if we could come up, and I'm not an impact fee guy, but I'm gonna say it, to have some type of a fee that goes along with the building permit to allow the fire department to build these fire protection areas where they deem them necessary and maintain the ones that they have, because we have a lot of fire ponds now that are hard to maintain.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that that's and the chief agrees, and he said, this was a challenge, and if he was here, I wish he was here, he said this was a challenge for us to figure out how it could be done equitably. And the way it is now, it's not equitable. And what it does is it drives up the cost of doing a subdivision. And you guys know where I sit on that. I
Yep.
think it's, there's a need, everybody agrees that there's a lack of housing that's relatively affordable, and it starts here, it starts with the approval process.
Yeah.
In part, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, in part, certainly. There's other players
Yeah, Maggie,
there.
it's all a part, it's all a straw in the camel's back, right?
Yeah.
So,
I understand that, and believe me, I am a proponent of affordable housing. I've been talking in
Yes,
every
you
space
have.
I can,
Yeah.
on the record for a long time about
Yeah.
it. But I guess my comment was that, yes, certainly there are things here, I completely agree. And there's, other players at the table that can also be doing things to contribute, so.
I agree,
just-
but it's a cumulative thing, and at some point,
Yeah.
the straw breaks the camel's back. And when if we're doing something here at the start of the race
Mm-hmm.
that drives the cost up, you don't get to the next step, you don't get out of the gate. And I'm not saying that it's overly onerous here, but I'm saying with the chief's agreement, if there's a way to say, okay, let's come up with some reasonable fee, whether it's $1,000 or $1,500 per building permit, that's gonna allow the fire department to build these resources where they deem them necessary and effective, instead of having them willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Right,
I agree.
so you're talking about subdivisions, really,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right now, in that context, I am. I
Yeah.
don't know if it would be inappropriate to expand that to building permits. And again, I started this by saying I'm not an impact fee guy, but in order to make it equitable, if I do a piece of land on one side of the street, I make 2 lots through subdivision, I gotta do something. But if he splits his lot across the street, he doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
So I don't know if it's more equitable to do it on a permit basis or what? I mean, we're
You'll
looking
probably
at,
need a study by the, I think, by the chief. You know, certain areas of town, we have water sources,
Yeah.
like the public
Yeah.
water supply, and we have a hydrant within
Yeah.
1,000 feet is the thing. Other places, we have fire ponds. It would be nice, kind of taking off on what Maggie said.
yeah,
If chief, as he has time, could actually look at where are the gaps in town, where something has to be built, and should I put it, you know, if the gap is this big, can I put it right there
Yeah.
instead of somebody comes and puts one here and one over there?
right.
Yeah.
Well, Deb, we have a model for this. It's what we do with the sidewalks now, right? Which is, I was saying for 10 or 15 years, right? It doesn't make any sense to build a sidewalk out where McDonald Motors is, that no one's gonna use. Take that money and put it in a fund. That was my idea. I'm the one who pounded the table on that.
Sounds like you are an impact fee guy. Sounds
I'm
like
not.
you.
I'm a common sense guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It makes
and-
no sense to build,
And I'll just
you know.
bring it up again, this is where a planner would be really helpful, because
Yeah.
I think, like, mapping out those areas where you're gonna run into that, and then, okay, what are the reasonable pathways to solve that, to again, not
Right.
have unintended consequences
I'd be
on
curious to see
the
that.
developer, but also, like, to be reasonable and common sense, but we don't have,
Anything
I'm a
to go on.
volunteer here, and so it's
yeah,
like,
and I thank you for
we
that.
need, you
Sometimes I
know.
know I come across a little rough, and I
Well, I
apologize
just-
for that, but that's how I am.
Yeah. I just think it's, again, for me, it just brings this up of like, we're facing a lot of growth in Bridgeton, we have a lot of needs in Bridgeton, and it's all very complicated how it all fits
Right.
together and how we come to the best outcome for everybody
Yeah.
in the community.
Yeah,
So that's, I just,
you
I'll
know
get
what
on
else
my
we need?
soapbox.
We need tax revenue, because our taxes go up every year.
Yep.
And our services don't seem to get any better.
Well, we have a lot of commercial development going on, I don't know.
We
you
need
know,
more.
And I, don't-
Well,
well,
okay, so
we
that's a
could go on all
discussion
night
for,
about that,
that's a
but-
discussion for a different day. or-
Yeah, listen,
They're not even gonna say
Dollar
anything.
General, they're not gonna, there's no impact on the town for that, but they're gonna bring, you know, those two buildings will bring $30,000-$40,000 in tax revenue.
Yeah. So, I think all Maggie's saying is, we want to do this in a purposeful way. We've made some changes that maybe weren't as purposeful as they could have been up
Right.
front, including this 25% thing. I'll say that right up front myself. So we just want to be purposeful about it, and sometimes that requires some research or mapping, and it will be good for, if we have, you know, someone on staff that can do that, or a consultant or something, then it makes it all go quicker too, because we're not relying on us or, you know, a staff member that might already have, you know, 100% of their time taken up and have to drop something. So, I mean, that's how I interpret that. And I don't think, it's not that we don't want change, we just want it to be more informed than we have been in the past. I mean, this has been very helpful because we get that side of the coin, which is, here's the issues that
Yeah.
it causes, or here's the things that can help.
No, and I know a lot of times you don't have anybody sitting here to give you any input, which
Right.
is frustrating.
Yeah, now you have one more, don't you?
I don't know. Do I? What's the last one?
I'll do one that's not subdivisions real
Okay.
quick,
Yeah.
that I know we had a lot of issues with, and it was one of the few things that we actually said no to. And that was the expansion of Mr. Lopez's storage facility. And not that I'm saying I want storage facilities everywhere, but instead what is approved is a 35-foot high boat storage building that looks like a warehouse. And so I just think we want to look at that, and I'll say something that this is not what I'm saying we should do, but honestly, that quarter's pretty full now, and to me, it makes, just to me, it makes, and again, I don't want to do a knee-jerk thing, it makes more sense to allow self-storage in that area, and there's not a lot of room left, than it does to continue to allow boat storage buildings, and this is nothing again, I know that's a big part of revenue and recreation in this town. Not saying I don't want them. What I'm saying is, if you really want it aesthetically for the inner quarter not to look like a bunch of warehouses, then don't allow things that are basically warehouses.
Right.
Now, there's not an issue with the Canuvo building, it's an existing structure.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about, because it's sort of backwards in my mind. We're allowing these huge structures, but we're saying, you can't have something that's 15 feet high.
Yeah.
Is that the rationale for the disapproval, or the not?
Well,
No,
we couldn't do it.
It
We
actually
couldn't
was
do it.
approved.
Oh,
The boat storage building was approved.
no.
But the
Yeah, the.
But the expansion of the storage
Storage unit
facility,
was
which
not-
which would have much less impact,
Was not
had to be
because-
denied.
Because of.
Just because of the
Because
use
it's not
table.
allowed in that district,
I see.
and you can't, listen, Mr. Lopez and the board probably looked at this for over a year.
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
With $1 billion, well, not $1 billion, probably 5 perturbations of how could it be done where it was legal, it met the shoreline zoning rules, all of that, and it just couldn't be done.
Oh my gosh, Maggie, I think the town needs a planner to do geospatial analysis.
I keep
Lord
coming back to
have
it.
mercy, y'all.
And
Okay, so
it takes an investment,
Madam
so
Chair,
everybody needs
I
to.
appreciate you bringing that up. I tried to forget that whole process.
Oh,
But, so during the process, I asked the question several times. They said, let me get this straight, so I can build a 35-foot tall building that I can put boats in, but I can't store boxes. That's what
Yeah.
I was told. And it's not that the board didn't want to find a way to do it, the ordinance didn't let them do it.
Right.
Yeah,
And I understand that. So there has to be a tweak in that ordinance, and I said right after it was finally approved, that if you guys want to change this so that it could be a storage building, it'll go from 35 feet tall to 11 feet tall.
okay, which would make a less.
Which you wouldn't even see it.
Exactly.
You wouldn't even see it. So, I think that's good.
think
Thank you
you're
for
right.
reminding me about that one.
Okay,
I saw the
so you need to
short-term,
introduce yourself
Oh.
again.
Royce Lopez from Bridgton. But I saw short-term rentals on the handy little pamphlet. I've heard a little bit about that, and I wanted to know, like, what's kind of going on with that?
Okay, so the board spent probably, about 2 years doing research on short-term rentals, and came to the conclusion we should have an ordinance. Not something simple, they should be registered. They would pay a small fee, nominal fee, to pay for the cost of managing that from a staff level, which is primarily software. There were a lot of different reasons, everything from business inequity to a portion of housing issues to, there were probably 5 or 6 different facets of why the board ultimately decided to move in that direction. Some of it was disturbance of the peace. So where it is right now is, and I'd be more than happy to send you the packet that the board put together with the justification. Where it is now is, we had a joint workshop with the select board. We did a little bit of a follow-up, and they had a separate meeting, and they voted to have an ordinance voted on by November, by this November. And they further have assigned staff to actually draft that ordinance because, we have some model ordinances, but from other towns that staff likes. But the basic idea is they'll be registered, so obviously then we know the owners and where they are.
The occupancy fire code.
There'll be an emergency contact, which is one of the big issues with these, is when there's a problem, there's nobody there that's necessarily the owner, and the owner isn't listed anywhere. You have to go hunting through the tax records, and that's not something that's gonna happen on the weekend when somebody's disturbing the peace. And then it's too late by the time you call somebody. So the emergency contact, basic fire, a self-checklist of basic safety stuff, fire safety,
Septic.
septic.
Septic, because we didn't want people advertising, you can sleep 20 people here when it only can equip 5.
Yeah.
You know, so
So
we've had that
those sort
problem
of-
in town.
Those sort of basic things, and then some, good neighbor type
Yeah.
rules. But you'll see in the package that I send you that we probably have 8 or 10 of these that are potentially operating as lodging
Yeah.
because they sleep more than 16 people, which under fire code requires them to be classified as lodging. Lodging's actually supposed to come through the planning board to be approved so that everything's safe and it meets certain standards.
Yeah.
And then there's probably other implications of it being called lodging versus, as opposed to
Right.
being, a rental unit. So there's probably I think there's about 6 or 8 of those. Some of these advertise one of them advertises sleeping up to 50 people.
Yeah.
Another advertises 30, and when you start looking at the number of bedrooms,
The math doesn't.
maybe
math.
it's 10 bedrooms and the one that
Yeah.
does 50, and you start figuring out, well, just how big is that septic system? Not big enough for 50 people.
No, and if
Yeah.
it's rotating every weekend, that septic system is just getting used and used and used and used, and everything else is as well.
So, and then certainly, again, this is in the packet, but certainly downtown. And we have an Airbnb owner on this board that was in favor of this. Certainly, there are homes that have been sold in the downtown which are more affordable than building a new house and then living in some of the places outside of town that have been purchased to be exclusively Airbnbs. And so those are not available. Granted, there's some advantages, because usually those homes are rehabbed and they're really nice,
Yeah.
right? But, so it wasn't any one item, it was a
Okay. Yeah.
combination.
I hadn't really planned to talk about this until I saw it on the list today, because I do snow shoveling. I have a snow shoveling account for a lady that's an Airbnb, that owns an Airbnb. But one of the things that came into my mind is the other people that would be affected. Like, I do the snow shoveling, the people who come to plow it, the people who come to
Our
remove
goal
the
is
trash.
not to hinder people from having short-term rentals, like Bruce said, I
Okay.
have one. I would not be for it if the goal was to get
Okay.
rid of
Right.
them. But
Okay.
there should be standards.
Yeah, so you have
Yeah.
you have a business where
Where you,
manage that property in a sense, winter or
In a
summer,
way.
on a weekly basis or on some basis, because people are going in and out and the owner doesn't do it.
Yeah, and I guess it seems like this could be the first step towards the regulations on Airbnbs. Like, this is, the first step is registering them. In my mind, the only reason that you'd want to register something is if you want to know who has it and to get rid of it.
That's not our intention
no, that's
at
not our
all.
intention at all. We're
Not
not
at
trying
all.
to get rid of them.
We
Okay.
don't
No.
think an ordinance would pass, so the other objective the board has is, you don't really want to put an ordinance forward that isn't going to pass. And
There's a lot of Airbnb owners in
that
town.
would be problematic.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't own any Airbnbs, obviously, so maybe I'm not the most qualified person to speak, but it seems to me that, not that you're doing this, but anything that would hinder Airbnbs, because these are people who rent them, are coming here for a week, maybe 2 weeks.
Right.
And they're gonna shop on Main Street, they're gonna go skiing.
Yeah, all that was a very strong
Yeah.
consideration to not limiting them.
Right. We
But
don't want to limit the
to
number of them.
Making sure they're safe,
Right.
making sure there's a level of business equity, if we had complaints from lodging owners.
Yep.
those were really the driving factors.
Yeah, I guess, is there a way to get rid of the ones that are sleeping 50 people instead of making everybody register and pay a fee?
Well, we can't get rid of them, but
No,
what we're looking at in addition to that is a way that those folks need to be more regulated. I mean, we can't necessarily make them go away.
And it was mainly for people that are not hosting.
Right.
Like, people that just come in, they buy property, they turn it into an Airbnb, and you never see them again.
Yeah.
It's
You
a,
know,
I mean, it's a
you know.
commercial entity.
Right, that's commercial
It's
at
not
that point. They're-
anything but
Right.
And
Yeah.
when it's not hosted, there's a lot of hosted ones here, so we didn't want to sort all that out at the
Right.
start. We just wanted to make sure there's some basics in place. And most of the towns around here are either in the process of adopting them or have adopted an ordinance.
Okay.
So we're using some of theirs. But I'll send you the package.
All right, thank you.
I do have to get going. I
Yeah.
have a funeral I have to get to.
So we didn't do a lot of prioritization ourselves, but I think that's okay.
Well, I think it was a
We got
good
lot of
meeting,
great
yeah.
input.
We got a lot of great feedback. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So I have one question. Try to do it in 30 seconds. So
Yeah, go ahead up there.
Thank you very much.
Jessica, if you need to leave, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's a funeral.
No worries. The question was, are you going to try to get any of the redistricting in for the overlay districts for this, for the June meeting?
Say again?
Will you try to get any new overlay districts defined and on the ballot for the June meeting?
It won't, well, assuming the comprehensive plan is still on there, there is an overlay district defined in there. And then it would really, if it passes, it will be up to staff and this board, or if we have a planner or a legal assistant, to then incorporate that into.
Right, but it won't, the changes won't actually be proposed until the comp plan is voted on again?
Right.
Okay.
And then, it won't be a fast process, but I'm sure things will be looked at with some priority, things, because there's gonna be an extra district or two, like, there's gonna be an extra mostly residential district. And near town, there's gonna be this recreation overlay. Those things are fairly straightforward to implement because they've been very well laid out in the comprehensive plan.
I think the rural village, as they've proposed it in the comp plan, that has some district lines that I think we talked about last summer. I think they're gonna need to be revisited. And then that one big lot at the end of Mountain Road that was removed from the mixed-use corridor and put in the rural, the lakeside neighborhood, that's gonna have to be revisited, so
Yeah.
I think some attention needs to be paid on some of that.
That'll get looked at. All of that will be looked
After
at.
it's accepted. so,
Right,
okay.
after it's accepted, then all that will get looked at.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else anybody want to bring up?
Deb, if we're doing some homework, looking at these priority lists.
Yeah, what I would say is just, and we'll do this in, I think we'll do it in February or March. So February, normally we would have a meeting February 17th, but February 19th which is Thursday, is a potential date that the people from the housing, state housing that have developed the MOCA, it's called.
Yeah.
Will be here, the two people that have written the rules.
Okay.
And the FAQs that I forwarded you guys.
Okay.
Will be here along with, potentially that date right now, along with other towns, to basically have Q&A session.
Okay.
And go through that. So I was going to ask at the February 6th meeting, can people come to that? And if they want to do that in place of a February 17th meeting, we can do that. But first I have to confirm with the other towns we can do it. So, so that's on the docket. And yeah, I think in between, so we might not get back to this till March unless we do 2 meetings in 1 week, which I'm really trying to keep from doing that to you guys and to myself. So probably we'll get back to this list in March, so you have plenty of time to look at it.
Yeah, board members, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
No, thank you for coming, Mark.
Thank you.
It's appreciated, you too. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Moved by Ms. Lynn, seconded by
Ms.
Nancy. All in favor?